It was 1872. The British Royal Navy had a problem. The ocean floor was a mystery. No one knew how deep it went. No one knew what was down there. And in an age where empires were being built on sea power and trade routes, that ignorance was unacceptable. So they sent a ship. Her name was HMS Challenger. And what she found would change science forever. On December 21st, 1872, HMS Challenger left Portsmouth, England, on what would become the world's first true oceanographic expedition. She carried 243 men, scientists, naval officers, and sailors, along with miles of rope, lead weights, and sampling equipment. Their mission was simple in theory: map the ocean floor. For 3.5 years, they sailed across the globe. They dropped weighted ropes into the ocean, measured the depths, pulled up samples of mud, rock, and organisms from the seafloor. Most measurements were unremarkable. A few thousand meters here, a few thousand there. But then, on March 23, 1875, somewhere in the Western Pacific, near a chain of islands called the Marianas, they dropped the rope again. It kept going, and going, and going. When it finally hit bottom, they measured a depth of around 8,000 meters, nearly 5 miles straight down. The scientists on board were stunned. They had no idea a place this deep even existed on Earth. They named the location after the ship itself, Challenger Deep. But they had only scratched the surface of the mystery.
To understand why the Mariana Trench exists, you have to go back, not years, not centuries, but 180 million years. The surface of our planet is not one solid shell. It is broken into massive slabs of rock called tectonic plates, floating slowly on the molten rock beneath them. They drift, they collide, they grind against each other in slow motion. In the Western Pacific, 2 of these plates have been locked in a collision for millions of years. The Pacific Plate, enormous, ancient, dense, is moving westward. In its path sits the much smaller Mariana Plate. When they meet, something extraordinary happens. The Pacific Plate, heavier and older, does not stop. It bends. It dives downward, sliding beneath the Mariana Plate and sinking deep into the Earth's mantle. At the exact point where this plate bends and disappears into the Earth, that is where the Mariana Trench was born. It is not just a hole in the ocean floor. It is a wound in the Earth's crust, carved by forces that have been operating longer than any dinosaur, any mountain range, any ocean we know today. At its deepest, Challenger Deep, the trench reaches 10,994 meters, 11 kilometers of nothing but water and darkness. If you dropped a steel ball from the surface, it would take over 1 hour to reach the bottom.
For 85 years after HMS Challenger's discovery, no human being had ever been to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. No machine either. The pressure down there, more than 1,000 times the pressure at sea level, made it nearly impossible. But in 1960, 2 men decided to try. Jacques Piccard was a Swiss engineer. His father, Auguste Piccard, had spent his life building vessels that could survive extreme environments. First, the upper atmosphere in balloons, then the deep ocean in bath escapes. Jacques had grown up with this obsession. He believed the bottom of the ocean could be reached. Don Walsh was a lieutenant in the United States Navy, 28 years old, calm under pressure, and deeply curious about what lay below. Together, they climbed into a vessel called the Trieste, a machine that looked nothing like a conventional submarine. It was a large float filled with aviation gasoline, lighter than water, attached to a heavy steel sphere, barely large enough for 2 men to sit inside. On January 23, 1960, they began their descent. The Trieste sank slowly into the darkness. The light from the surface disappeared within minutes. The temperature dropped. The pressure climbed. 4 hours and 48 minutes later, they touched the bottom. 10,916 meters below the surface of the Pacific Ocean. Inside the sphere, Picard looked out the small porthole with a flashlight, and he saw something that stopped him cold. A flatfish. A living, swimming flatfish, lying calmly on the sediment of the deepest place on Earth. In that moment, everything science had assumed about deep ocean life was overturned. Life existed here. Actual, visible.
What Picard saw that day opened a door. Over the following decades, scientists sent unmanned probes deeper and deeper into the Mariana Trench. What they found defied every expectation. Down here, there is no sunlight. None. The ocean absorbs all light within the first 200 meters. Below that, permanent darkness. The temperature sits between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. The pressure is so extreme that it would collapse a human lung instantly. And yet, life is everywhere. Because there is no sunlight, there is no photosynthesis. Instead, the ecosystem here is powered by something called chemosynthesis. Bacteria living near hydrothermal vents, cracks in the ocean floor that leak superheated, chemical-rich water, convert those chemicals into energy. These bacteria become food, and everything else builds on top of them. The creatures that live here are unlike anything on the surface. Snailfish, translucent, soft-bodied, almost ghost-like, are the deepest living fish ever recorded. Their bodies contain no air pockets. Their cell membranes are packed with special molecules that prevent the pressure from collapsing them. They move slowly through the dark, feeding on amphipods. Amphipods, crustaceans that look like enormous shrimp, swarm in the deepest parts of the trench. Some reach 30 centimeters in length. They are among the most abundant creatures at full depth. Xenophyophores, single-celled organisms the size of a human hand. One cell, visible to the naked eye. They are the largest individual cells of any known organism on our planet. Scientists believe that many of these creatures have changed very little since the age of the dinosaurs. Evolution, under such stable and extreme conditions, moves differently here. The Mariana Trench may be Earth's closest thing to a living museum of ancient life.
In 2019, American explorer Victor Vescovo made the deepest dive in history, reaching 10,928 meters in the Challenger Deep aboard a submersible called the DSV limiting factor. He broke the previous record. He collected scientific samples. He spent hours at the bottom, documenting what he saw. And among the rocks and sediment and ancient creatures, he found a plastic bag and a candy wrapper at the deepest point on Earth, in a place no human had visited in years, in a darkness so complete that no light from the surface had ever reached it. Our garbage had arrived before us. Scientists have since confirmed that microplastics are present throughout the sediment of the Mariana Trench, along with PCBs and other toxic industrial chemicals, now absorbed into the bodies of creatures living at full depth. The Mariana Trench, which took 180 million years to form, and more than a century for humans to reach, has already been touched by the worst of what we produce.
The story of the Mariana Trench is not just a story about a hole in the ocean floor. It is a story about curiosity, about sailors in 1875 who dropped a rope into the unknown and refused to stop paying it out. It is a story about courage, about two men who climbed into a steel ball and trusted it to carry them 11 kilometers into the darkness. It is a story about humility, because every time we thought we knew what was possible in that trench, life proved us wrong. And it is a warning, because even the most remote,
inaccessible, inhospitable place on this planet has not been spared from what we have done to it. The Mariana Trench has been here for 180 million years. It will be here long after us. The only question is, what kind of world will it be part of when the next species finally reaches the bottom?